How many people ever played a video game on the Atari 2600 or in the arcades that have very sort of blocky graphics? The reason they had blocky graphics is because way back when, computers could only handle displaying a certain number of pixels at a time. So let's say when Space Invaders came out, maybe they could only display 256 of these blocks at one time. And so everything had to be built out of square blocks. So if you look at Space Invaders, say, we'll go to Images, to Filter. See what I mean? They're all made of equal size, equal color squares. All the squares are the same all the squares are the same size, and they each only can contain one color. So this was the best you could do when I was 7 or 8 years old with computer graphics. It's the best you could possibly have. A few years before that, this was the best you could do with computer graphics. All you could do is display white graphics. You could not even display black graphics. Black was no light, white was light. On, off, digital. Yes, no. So in Photoshop, if we're going to be getting at the essence of some of the differences between Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign, I think it's really helpful to have those 3 circles in your mind. We're going to be drawing those 3 circles in a second. In Photoshop, almost everything is made up of little squares called pixels. In the earlier versions of Photoshop, this is all they could do. Anything you did in Photoshop was about altering these pixels. So since we're zoomed all the way in, let's choose our next tool. Can everybody find the first paintbrush? There are a few paintbrush icons. We're looking for the one right below the Band-Aid, at least in my version. It might be slightly different in your version.
Does it say B next to it?
Yep, it should say B. If you hover your cursor over it, it will say brush. That's for brush tools. So any of the tools, if you're not sure what they are, you can put your cursor over it and it will tell you. Yep, paint tool. Brush tool, I'm sorry. Now that brush tool has a little triangle next to it. What does that mean?
More tools.
More tools. And in fact, we want a tool that's within that brush tool. So I'm going to click and hold my trackpad button down. And what we want to choose is the pencil tool. So I chose the pencil tool. And I want to make sure, all the way at the bottom of my palette, that there's a black square in the foreground and a white square in the background. So I have the pencil tool, black, and like me, your tool should be approximately the same size as those squares. Does anyone not have what I'm pointing to on my screen right now? So if you've chosen the pencil tool, you've got a square, hollow square, same size.
Oh, I got it now.
You got it? Awesome. Okay. So now I want you to try to write your initials using the trackpad. And I'd like to give you another secret from the graphic design world. I find you can be much more precise with a trackpad than with a mouse if you do this simple thing. Use the hand that you do not write with. If I write with my right hand, I'm going to use my left hand, and the index finger on my left hand is going to press the button on my trackpad. So I'm pressing the button on my trackpad, and then I'm using index or middle finger on the hand that I draw with to actually write. And if I want to go to a different part of the screen, I'll just release with the left hand and draw with the right to move my cursor. So I'm holding with my left index finger and kind of painting or drawing with my right finger. So see if you can do your initials. So you want to do this. You want to hold this button with your left hand, and then you can. Right. It's just like finger painting. Try it. So you really are finger painting.
How do you remove a box that you've colored?
So you made it black, but you don't want it to be black.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, if you can undo the last stroke by doing Control Z or Apple Z on the Apple, and that will undo what you've just done. I'm not going to tell you yet how you can undo more than once. So right now, we're just doing our initials. And if you're as anal as I am, they'll all line up. That is not necessary, but it's how my brain works. Everybody have their initials? 2 letters fine. You don't have to do 3. Once you have your initials, it should look, doesn't it kind of look like the graphics from the age of Space Invaders? Very simple. We call this pixel art. Some people still prefer to draw and paint this way. Entire video games are still made using pixel art. But let's select our magnifying glass again. So I'm selecting magnifying glass, using Option, click to zoom out once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Let's zoom out to 500%. Then I'm going to zoom out all the way to 100%. What do you notice?
Doesn't look that pixelated.
Everyone hear what Steve said? Can everyone speak up a little bit more so everyone can hear? Steve, could you say that again?
It doesn't look so pixelated at 100%.
That's it. It's teeny tiny.
Is that the same way for everyone? Do you notice how when you zoom out it actually looks almost decent? It doesn't look pixelated when you zoom out. But if I zoom back in, click, 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 I don't even have to go all the way to 3200. In fact, probably at about 200 I can already start to notice the pixelization. So the secret of bitmap graphics, we call them bitmap, because each pixel represents 1 bit, 1 piece of information. It has color, and that's all it needs to keep track of. So bitmap is often abbreviated to this. BMP. You might see some files, particularly if you look back at graphics from many years ago on a PC, they'll end in .bmp. A format that says, I'm made out of pixels, as opposed to anything else. One of the most important takeaways for Photoshop is the idea that you are effectively painting with squares. When you're changing things in Photoshop, you're changing the color of squares. Period. That's Photoshop, literally. And we're going to learn a few more things that you can actually do with Photoshop. But essentially what Photoshop does at its core is changes the color of little squares. That's it. I mean, it can change them in a ton of different ways. You can do really cool things by overlapping squares. But why might it be important to know how zoomed in I am when I'm designing and working in Photoshop? If Photoshop is all about just changing the color of squares, and if the further I'm zoomed out, the less I can notice that they're squares, why is it important to know whether I'm at 50%, 25%, 400%? What does the percent actually mean?
Does it mean how it's going to look when you on the paper, or if you print it out or something?
Kind of. Not exactly, but kind of. You're kind of getting what it is. In the case of Photoshop, in the old days, when you were at 100%, that's what it would look like on a computer screen when it was open. So let's go back to our website, shall we? Chrome, DG Dojo. Notice, by default, I use that same image as the background for the website. It should look basically the way that it looked in Photoshop at 100%.